let's dive right into this because today we are unpacking a truly fascinating topic, the mechanics of multimodal composition. Now, I know that sounds a bit academic, but in our hyper-connected digital-first world, this is arguably one of the absolute most vital communication skills you can possess. We're going to break down exactly what it means to compose not just with traditional words, but with an entire symphony of different media, and how mastering this can completely transform the way you connect with literally any audience. But before we get into the weeds, I want to ask you a question. Are you already a multimodal composer? Think about your daily social media habits for a second. When you snap a photo, slap on a specific filter, layer in a trending audio track, and then type out a witty caption, what exactly are you doing? Well, you're actively combining different modes of communication to tell a story and get a very specific reaction from your followers. So whether you realized it or not, you are actually already a natural multimodal creator. Smartphones, keyboards, headphones, cameras, these are basically the modern tools of composition. Multimodal texts incorporate a whole bunch of different types of communication. When you combine written text with sound, images, and movement using these digital gadgets, you are doing something entirely organic. You're building a highly accessible, visually and audibly compelling message to connect with other people. You've been practicing this in digital spaces for years, so today in this explainer, we're just going to formalize that knowledge. Here is the roadmap for our journey today. First, beyond the written word. Second, the 5 modes of communication. Third, multimodal trailblazers in action. And finally, building your advocacy project. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Beyond the Written Word, where we'll look at understanding the rhetorical situation. The crucial point here is that all composition begins with the rhetorical situation. Think of this as the circumstance where you, the composer, use communication to influence an audience based on a very specific context and purpose. You have to choose the absolute best tools available for that audience. For instance, a sports writer could sit down and write 1,000 words trying to describe the sheer speed and prowess of an athlete, but if they just use a striking visual image or a chart of race statistics, they engage the reader instantly. They're relating details that are incredibly difficult or at least way less efficient to express with words alone. Moving on to Section 2, the 5 modes of communication. These are your building blocks of meaning. Okay, so we essentially have 5 distinct modes of communication at our disposal. The linguistic mode is your written or spoken text and word choice. The visual mode includes what the reader actually sees, color, style, lighting, size. The audio mode covers sound, narration, music, and even deliberate silence. Then there's the spatial mode, which is super crucial for digital media. It's all about arrangement, proximity, and visual organization on a page or screen. And finally, the gestural mode involves body language and facial expressions, which you'll often see in vlogs or live speeches. Now, the real magic happens through what we call layering. By layering these different elements, like, say, adding ominous music over a visual of a totally serene lake, you create a much deeper, more emotional meaning than any single mode could ever achieve by itself.
All right, Section 3, Multimodal Trailblazers in Action. Let's talk about the rule of contrast.
To really see just how flexible these genres can be, let's look at 2 vastly different real-world examples. First up, meet Torika Bolatajici. She's a creator, an educator, and an art historian who brilliantly leverages mixed media and photography to explore heavy themes like human ecology, Pacific arts, and mixed race identity. She noticed that higher education often dismissed the lived experiences of marginalized communities. So she took a highly interdisciplinary, multimodal approach to bring Indigenous artists and communities of color straight to the forefront of her academic and professional portfolios. Bolatajici actually has this wonderful quote: "I can never deny the deeply personal place that the work comes from." And I think that just beautifully captures the power of multimodalism. By using photography, video, and these pop-up community reading rooms, she isn't just writing about diverse cultures, she's actively representing them in 4 dimensions. She's drawing on her own lived experiences, which allows her to communicate complex cultural subjects far better than traditional, flat literary text ever could. Now, let's jump over to the complete opposite end of the spectrum for our second trailblazer. We're going to deliberately contrast Bolatachici's deeply personal mixed media art with a highly structured, ethos-driven government policy blog. Specifically, we're looking at a post by Alexandra Dopolito Dunn for the Environmental Protection Agency regarding the Pollution Prevention Act. Dunn's blog post, which is titled Celebrating a Win-Win, uses a very strategic set of multimodal tools to build trust with a public and corporate audience. She uses bold headlines to instantly grab attention and set a positive tone. She deliberately uses short, easily digestible paragraphs so the reader doesn't just get overwhelmed looking at a screen. She relies heavily on ethos, meaning she uses neutral, measured language to establish herself as a reliable expert. She deploys statistics as hard evidence and strategically uses hyperlinks to other EPA programs. Those hyperlinks aren't just for show. They serve as functional tools that command attention and build immense credibility. And finally, she ends the whole thing with a direct call to action, thanking her partners. This perfectly illustrates that spatial mode we talked about earlier in action. Notice how deliberately arranging headlines, short paragraphs, embedded media, and hyperlinks doesn't just make the page look nice, it deliberately guides the reader's experience. It ensures the ethos and logos of the argument are delivered in a way that is perfectly tailored for a digital audience, an audience that, let's be honest, tends to scan rather than read deeply. And that brings us to Section 4, Building Your Advocacy Project. We're taking this from theory to practice. Now, an advocacy project essentially uses multiple modalities to inform readers about an overarching problem and to propose a change. When you're brainstorming for your own, you want to consider issues that directly impact your community, things like clean water, climate change, access to healthcare, or maybe anti-bullying initiatives. Pick something you are genuinely passionate about. But remember, you can't just assume you know what a community needs. You have to do the legwork. Research, conduct interviews, and actually listen to the people directly affected by the issue to make sure your proposed solutions are pragmatic and helpful. So to construct a highly actionable and persuasive advocacy project, you need to follow this essential 3-step drafting process. Step 1. Define the situation and the problem clearly. What exactly is happening and why is it an issue? Step 2. Define your purpose and ultimate goal. Are you just trying to inform people, or do you want to inspire tangible action? Write this out as a clear thesis statement. And step 3, determine the best modes and media for your audience. If your target audience is young voters, a gestural and audio-heavy vlog might be your best bet. But if you're presenting to a city council, well, a spatially organized, linguistically precise infographic is probably the smarter choice. Once you know your modes, it's time to plan. And you've got 2 primary tools for this. Mockups are perfect for static, spatial planning. Think things like websites or posters. We need to figure out the alignment and proximity of your visual and linguistic elements. Storyboards, on the other hand, are what you use for time-based media that progresses, like a video PSA or a podcast. They help you map out the actual sequence of images and audio over time. Both of these tools are absolute game changers for organizing your thoughts before you actually hit record or start creating. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with one final provocative question to think about. What issue will you advocate for? Remember, you already possess the innate multimodal skills from your daily digital life. You already know how to layer text, images, and sound. So, now that you understand the rhetorical situation, the 5 modes of communication, and how to intentionally structure your ideas, I challenge you to take these tools and create a project that makes a real, tangible impact in the world. Thanks so much for joining me today, and happy composing!